Hey guys, it's me again, this time coming to you from my couch. And I know that you guys were really bummed about missing World War One and World War Two. So of course, I really want to finish it. I absolutely love World War One and World War Two because how could you not find them fascinating? So we're going to start at the very beginning. So in your textbook, World War One is chapter 25. I highly recommend reading up because it does a really good job of explaining the whole war. It's just very detailed, but also simple at the same time. But I want you guys to also know you can use my website. Okay, so here you have uh, my website that has, quotes from literature we're going to use. Of course, here's the guys in their trenches, a summary. Come down here for the slides if you want. This is what you would have been hearing from me in class. Your IDs, but I'm not going to have you do them unless you really want to do them for fun. The reading packet of primary and secondary sources. We are going to be doing some readings from here. If you're interested, here are some links to some cool articles from The Guardian, which is a British paper, and it is showing what these World War One sites look like today. This was to commemorate the 100-year anniversary of World War One, since the war wreaked so much havoc on, in particular, northern France. You can see what those sites look like today. And then you come down here. Here's some videos we're going to be watching and how you can sort of keep up. You don't have to watch all of them, but I'm going to point out some that I highly, highly recommend. So you've got your crash course, of course, which, it's always nice if you like John Green. He does talk a little bit fast. But my favorite one is this one, The History of World War One in one take, the history bomb. 6 minutes, one take, basically the entire history of World War One. It's a good one. Here's a documentary of World War One covered in 1 hour, if you'd rather just watch that. I do recommend also watching this one, although I'll warn you, it's a bit graphic. World War One was so awful and so terribly fought and horribly planned and not well thought out at all that the soldiers that came home from the war were shell shocked. We call it now post traumatic stress disorder. But the shell shock that was seen in World War One or post World War One was on a whole new level. Soldiers had never been exposed to this kind of battle before, this kind of fighting, and we'll learn about what I mean by this kind of fighting. But soldiers had never been through something like this before, and the psychological trauma actually caused physical, neurological brain damage. Some of these soldiers experienced brain damage without ever having been hit on their head. So this shows what that shell shock looked like, and I'm going to warn you again, it is quite graphic. Here's a documentary that I was planning on showing you in class. It's The Russian Revolution. It's fairly short, or you can watch this one. I don't know, whichever one looks better to you. The top one is better, I think. But anyway, let's get started. Today I want to talk about what led up to World War One. Because when you think about it, World War One starts with, a guy got assassinated. The Archduke of Austria at the time, he's not even the most important person in the world or anything. You wouldn't think that his assassination would cause such a destructive and awful war. But the Austrian Archduke, Franz Ferdinand, is assassinated by a Serbian teenage freedom fighter slash terrorist, whatever you want to call him, in the city of Sarajevo, Bosnia. That all sounds kind of convoluted. So, what led up to that, and how did that cause this war? So, let's go back to here, and I have to show you this map. This is a map of the Balkans in Europe, and it was sort of seen as this kind of back area part of Europe. A lot of people didn't really give it a lot of thought, but this right here is the Balkans. You see these countries right here: Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Montenegro, Albania, Greece. Then you've also got Bosnia, Croatia right here, the Dalmatian coast. You can see, though, the most important thing about the Balkans is where they are located, who they are, who their neighbors are. To the north is Austria-Hungary. To the south is the Ottoman Empire. And I want you guys to imagine that for centuries, the Ottomans, who are Muslim Turks, obviously for the most part, and the Austrians, who are Catholic, are playing a game of tug of war with the Balkans, going back and forth and back and forth. At various times in history, the Ottomans would invade. Then the Austrians would come in and push the Ottomans back. Then the Ottomans would invade again, and then the Austrians would come and push them back and would also invade. And in the meantime, though, these people who live here are caught in the middle. Now, who lives here? Obviously, Serbians, Montenegrins, Romanians, Bulgarians, Greeks. But the important thing to know about these people is that they are very diverse. Some of these people are Catholic, some of them are Greek or Russian Orthodox, such as in Greece, and some of them are Muslim. And they're all stuck living here in this constant game of tug of war. So this part of the world is no stranger to this to warfare and conflict. In fact, the Balkans would see conflict well into the 1990s. I was in high school when the last big Balkan War happened. So as you guys can see, the fact that they're it's not so much who they are, but rather who their neighbors are that has become an issue for them. They also have Russia up here to the northeast, which also would like control of this area. You've got Italy on the other side, but they're separated by the Adriatic Sea. You've got the Mediterranean down here, yet they've never really profited off of the Mediterranean trade. And then over here you have the Black Sea. This little opening right here into the Black Sea, this is called the Dardanelles Strait. And it will be fought over in World War I in a horrific battle. So this area of the world was called the gunpowder barrel of Europe, right? Like everyone knew if something happens here, like if a big war is going to break out, it's going to happen here because of all the constant conflict. Because you have not only politics but also religion that play a role. And it's 3 religions, after all, that come in here. They're located in a strategic part of Europe between 3 empires, all of which are clamoring for a piece of power and land that come with that piece of geography. So this is where World War I is going to start. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning here. First of all, by the time we get to 1914, you'll have to excuse that sound, it's my dog's door. By the time we get to 1914, Europe has had a long time of relative peace. There have been a few wars here and there that have been broken out. For example, ever since, if you go back 100 years to 1815, which was the end of the Napoleonic Wars, Europe's major war had been the Crimean War. There was the Boer War in South Africa between England and the Netherlands. And there were a few colonial wars here and there too. You have your unification wars as well, like the unification revolts and conflicts. But as far as a full-scale, huge war, like something on the level of the Napoleonic Wars, Europe hadn't seen anything like that since Napoleon. So for nearly 100 years, with the exception of the Crimean War, they'd had like relative-ish peace. The fact that that Europe went that long with that little war, considering the history of Europe, is quite remarkable. A lot of people think that war could have broken out way before 1914, but it didn't, largely because of the man himself, Otto von Bismarck. He had been carefully manipulating the situation in Europe to prevent a war. Remember, guys, how Germany actually became unified. Bismarck only went to war when he had strategically planned it out and knew that he could win. So in every other way, Bismarck was actually very much against war because he knows that war can be very destabilizing. So for that reason, he tried very hard to prevent any further wars from breaking out. Besides, like he's got reason to be worried now. He's not so confident anymore of his abilities now that Germany is unified, because he knows that in unifying Germany, he has upset the balance of power in Europe by introducing Germany as this new powerful country. He also knows that he has really, really made France angry and that France is out for revenge because of the Franco-Prussian War and taking Alsace-Lorraine. So he decides that his best strategy, his best plan, is to make an alliance with Russia and Austria-Hungary. He figures he needs these powerful friends because just in case of a war does break out, in particular with France, he knows that France is coming after him or after Germany. He wants friends, powerful friends just in case. But so he tries to make this alliance with Russia and Austria-Hungary, but it doesn't work because Russia and Austria-Hungary hate each other. They're not getting along. Why aren't they getting along? Well, because of the Balkans. They both want a piece of the Balkans. And Bismarck, instead of getting them both to be his allies, he's actually restraining them from going to war with each other. Let's go back to the map. Why do Russia and Austria-Hungary both want a piece of this map? Well, Austria-Hungary wants it because they view it as traditionally theirs. After all, for many years it was part of their empire. And so Austria-Hungary wants this area also because of its strategic location close to the Mediterranean. Russia wants it, though, because of the ethnicity of many of the people who live in here. In particular, the ethnicity of the Bosnians, Croatians, Serbians, Montenegrins, and to a large extent also Romanians and Bulgarians. So these people, their ethnicity often is referred to as Slavic. Russian people are also Slavic. Slavic is basically just another European ethnicity. It's, most people would just simply refer to it as white nowadays, or just another form of Caucasian. But in Europe, it is distinct. They're, as opposed to being Aryan or Spanish, they are of the Slavic ethnicity. They are so different, in fact, that Hitler actually considered Slavic people to be inferior, which is why one of the reasons why he wants to invade Eastern Europe and take it from them. Well, the problem, though, is that these people in the Balkans, they're Slavic. In Austria, Slavic people are considered a minority and they're not treated very well. But in Russia, Slavic people are the majority. You guys might remember that little activity we did with the colored cards in class that one time. And so Russia wants to stand up for its little Slavic brothers and sisters. Russia would like to see these countries come together and form one great Slavic state so that they don't get picked on anymore by any more of the bigger countries in Europe like Austria or the Ottomans. So that's why they both want it. Meanwhile, Germany really wants them both to be friends, but that's not happening. Okay, now remember, to the south you've got the Ottoman Empire. Okay, the Ottoman Empire is called the sick man of Europe. It is clearly falling apart for many reasons. Number one, it never industrialized. It doesn't have a strong economy anymore. And on top of that, it's got all these internal problems. So everybody knows that the Ottoman Empire is dying. Everyone knows that. The only reason why the Ottoman Empire didn't crumble earlier was because European nations actually prevented each other from going after it, because everybody wanted a piece of it, but nobody wanted to let another country go after it. So since they didn't trust each other, nobody actually went for it. It was kind of one of those situations where like everyone was afraid to make the first move. So technically no one ever claimed it. It would take World War I to finally destroy the empire. So here comes Bismarck with this other plan. He calls it the Bismarckian system. The Bismarckian system is basically just an alliance between Germany and Austria-Hungary. He figures this is a natural alliance as they are both German-speaking places. But in 1876, there is a crisis, the Balkan crisis, in which two countries in the Balkans, Bosnia and Montenegro, are going to attack the Ottoman Empire. Why do they do this? Well, because Bosnia and Montenegro view the Ottoman Empire as a threat, because the Ottoman Empire is trying to hold on to its claims in the Balkans. Russia actually agrees with this and supports what Bosnia and Montenegro are doing, and they go ahead and they attack the Ottomans as well. Besides, Russia is still kind of sore about that whole losing the Crimean War to the Ottomans thing. The surprising thing is that Austria ends up actually approving of this, which is kind of weird because Russia's like, we hate you, but okay, at least we agree on something. So the war is over, and because of the support from Russia and Austria, Bosnia and Montenegro actually win. This is also how you know the Ottoman Empire is on its way out. Bosnia and Montenegro are tiny little countries. And the fact that they beat the Ottoman Empire, that just goes to show you how weak the Ottoman Empire was. So when the war is over, they sign a treaty called the Treaty of San Stefano in 1878. What this treaty does is it creates a new country called Bulgaria. but it creates it as a very large satellite state of Russia, meaning that basically Russia would use it as a sort of protection buffer zone against everyone else, and that Russia would have complete influence over it. And also, it was humongous. So, other European powers, they decide they can't have this. Russia can't possibly become this powerful. They feel threatened, so they call another meeting, the Congress of Berlin, 2 years later in 1878. And they don't even ask Russia's permission for this. But the person who's actually dominating this, since it's in Berlin, is Otto von Bismarck himself. So at this meeting, they decide to completely trash the Treaty of San Stefano, and they undo it. You can actually do that in history. You can actually undo treaties. People do it, ask the Native Americans, right? This humiliates Russia. Russia's pissed. And so this does not do away with Bulgaria, but Russia is angry. Russia feels like once again they have been slighted. They have been sort of cast out into the cold by other European powers. Bulgaria still is established just as a smaller state. Meanwhile, these other countries, Serbia, Montenegro, and Romania, they remain as independent states. They used to be under Ottoman control, but the Ottoman Empire has completely lost any power over the Balkans. So, meanwhile, these other two small Serbian or Slavic states, Bosnia and Herzegovina, they are placed under Austrian control, not as part of Austria's empire, just simply under Austrian influence. So there's a difference. Bosnia and Herzegovina are technically independent countries, but Austria is, in a way, occupying it and exerting influence and power over it. So it was a really sketchy situation. It was not well handled at all, because everybody knew that Bosnia and Herzegovina would not appreciate being placed under Austrian control. However, this was done to keep a sort of balance and power in place. But Russia's even more mad, because of course Russia's thinking, why the heck do they get to have Bosnia and Herzegovina under their influence, but we can't have Bulgaria? So Russia is really angry. Okay, so out of this comes some new alliances. Russia is really angry at Germany now because of the fact that they got rid of the Treaty of San Stefano. Bismarck realizes that he's burned his bridges with both Russia and France at this time. So he does the next best thing. He decides to ally with Austria-Hungary. And Austria-Hungary agrees, because they're also sort of alienated in Europe. No one really likes them ever since they decided to remain neutral in the Crimean War. But then along comes Italy, and Italy decides to also join their alliance. They kind of do it secretly, like not really very openly. The reason why they decide to join up with Germany was they didn't care at all about Austria too much, but in fact, Italy doesn't even really like Austria. But it was more Germany that attracted them. Germany and France hate each other. Italy is not happy with France at all. So, and the reason for that is because Italy has lost some colonies in North Africa to France. Italy had a little bit of a chance to get some colonies in North Africa, and France took them all. So Italy would like to join up with Germany just to really stick it to France at this point. This creates what's called the Triple Alliance in 1882. This is the Triple Alliance between Germany, Austria, and Italy. They are also known as the Central Powers. This is the first alliance in World War I. Now, why are they called the Central Powers? Okay, I'm going to show you guys a map. Take a look at where they are. Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy are literally in the center of Europe. But also take a look at Germany's position here. The other alliance is going to be between Russia, France, and Britain, and this places Germany and Austria-Hungary smack between two of its enemies. Okay, now Bismarck is no dummy, and he realizes that this could be bad. So he signs something called the Reinsurance Treaty between Russia and Germany in 1887. He tries to get this thing going. between Russia and Germany, who, they're not friends. But Bismarck he's trying to remain friendly with Russia. He never actually wanted any trouble from Russia. He kind of sees this as, well, it couldn't really be helped, because Austria and Russia are enemies, and so he did what he could, but he's still trying to remain friendly with Russia. However, because he doesn't want Russia to ally with France, Bismarck figures if Russia allies with France, that's it. We're screwed, because those two countries on either side of us could sandwich us. They could crush us. However, little problem here. Bismarck is fired by Wilhelm, the Kaiser of Germany, in 1890. And when the reinsurance treaty expires, Wilhelm refuses to renew it. You guys, stop. Sorry, now it's my son, see? And my dog. Wilhelm refuses to renew it because he's afraid that this would insult his BFF, right? Austria. Why does he feel this way? Well, because part of that reinsurance treaty said that if Austria were to find itself at war with Russia, Germany would remain neutral. That was part of the treaty. Austria doesn't like that. So, to try to avoid a fight with his best friend, Austria, Wilhelm doesn't renew the treaty. When Bismarck realizes that Wilhelm's doing this, he knows that there's going to be trouble. Okay? Now, what about this other alliance? Okay, this starts to form as a result of Germany's own ambitions. Wilhelm, the Kaiser of Germany, he wants what he called, quote unquote, Germany's place in the sun. The translation is he wants Germany to rule Europe. I mean, this might sound familiar, right? Because this is what essentially they try to do as well in World War II under the leadership of Adolf Hitler. Now, in this place, though, Russia now feels completely alienated now that it has been slighted after the whole trashing of the Treaty of San Stefano. So since Russia is alienated, Russia feels at least we can become friends with Germany's enemy, which is France. So in 1894, Russia and France officially sign an alliance. France is all about it. They are super eager to become allies with Russia because France hates Germany. And they figure, well, if Russia is signing an alliance against Germany, we're in. You don't need to twist France's arm in this situation. In retaliation, Wilhelm figures he's going to show France what's up, and he tries to instigate a revolution in Morocco. He sends troops into Morocco and tries to get these double agents that he sends in there to start an anti-French revolution in Morocco to declare independence from France, since Morocco was a French colony in North Africa. It failed. The revolution never actually was completed or even happened. But, so France ends up just kind of sending a stern warning over to Germany. However, someone else was watching this, Britain. And Britain has a lot of colonies in Africa. They do not like the idea of anyone messing with African colonies and inciting revolutions. Because you know what happens to revolutions, right? They spread. So Britain doesn't like the fact that Germany has done this. They think Germany is playing with some fire here. So in a show of solidarity, they ally with France, mainly as a way to hold on to, in a show of solidarity, to hold on to Africa as the great colonizers of Africa. This creates the Triple Entente in 1907 between Britain, France, and Russia. So here we go, guys. We have our two sides of the war. Britain, France, and Russia versus Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. And I'm going to take you back to my map. Take a look at Germany's position here. It is sandwiched between France and Russia. This is exactly what Bismarck was afraid of, and he can't do anything about it because he's been fired. If a war breaks out, what is Germany's position here? Germany is now going to find itself in a two-front war, fighting Russia on one side and France on the other. Well, that's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly what Bismarck knew would happen, and he can do nothing about it now. So Britain, France, and Russia are also known as the Allies. Okay. So this is what the Balkans look like in 1878. You've got Austria-Hungary here. You've got the free states of Bosnia, Montenegro, Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, and then there's like um, this part called Macedonia, Albania, which are still part of the Ottoman Empire. Then you got Greece hanging out here, all independent. But remember, Greece is free. They had become free in the age of revolutions back in the 1820s, and they had a German king, and it was kind of a weird situation. Okay, so something happened to set the stage for World War One. The situation is going to become pretty bad when Austria decides, what the heck, let's just annex Bosnia and Herzegovina. What could possibly go wrong? We might as well. We already control them anyway. So in 1908, Austria annexes Bosnia and Herzegovina. To annex them means that they basically tried to bring them into their empire, like colonize them all over again. They weren't supposed to do that. Remember, the Balkans were supposed to stay sovereign and independent. So Serbia comes along, Serbia, the big free Slavic country, comes along and protests and says, hey, you can't do that to our little Serbian brothers and sisters in Bosnia and Herzegovina. You got to leave them alone. Come on, Russia, help support us in this. You're the big Serbian, the Serbian big, or the Slavic big brother. So Serbia protests against this and gets Russia to also support this and say, hey, Austria, you need to back up and you can't take Bosnia and Herzegovina. However, Austria does not want a large Slavic state because, after all, if there's a large Slavic state right next door to them, which is allied with Russia, this would threaten their empire. So the Kaiser intervenes and tells Russia, you got to step back and let Austria-Hungary do its thing in the Balkans. It's been there forever. Just leave them alone, let them do their thing. And so Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany forces Russia to basically step back. Can you please stop making noise? I'm making a video. And so Russia does, much to its humiliation. They were pretty weak by this point. Look at the year 1908. 3 years ago, they had just lost the war to Japan. So Russia doesn't really have a choice. When they're told to stand down, they stand down. This leads then a few years later, just 4 years later, to what's called the First Balkan War in 1912, in which these countries, Serbia, Bulgaria, Montenegro, and now even Greece, come together. They form what's called the Balkan League, and they decide to just get rid of enemy number one, the easiest and the weakest link here, which is the Ottoman Empire, and they defeat them. Only problem is now they can't figure out how they're going to divide up this new territory they just conquered from the Ottoman Empire, Macedonia and Albania, which I just showed you on the map. So the very next year, they go to war again, the Second Balkan War. This time, Greece, Serbia, Romania, and in a weird plot twist, the Ottoman Empire decide that they're now going to get together and attack and defeat Bulgaria, because Bulgaria decided, while everybody was fighting over Macedonia and Albania, that Bulgaria would simply just take Macedonia and Albania for itself. Crazy, right? That was a weird plot twist, that the Ottoman Empire would suddenly join the countries that just a year before had attacked them. So imagine being Macedonia and Albania in this place, in this time, and just like everybody around you is going nuts, right? Serbia, however, which is the large Slavic country in the Balkans, they have some ambitions. They want Albania to themselves, or at least the part of Albania that has a port to the Adriatic Sea. Serbia didn't have access to the sea, and this would give them a leg up in trade and boost their economy. However, Austria doesn't want this to happen. So once again, they call one more conference, the London Conference, and at this conference, Austria decides to block Serbia from getting Albania by making Albania an independent country. This was Austria's way of saying, well, if we can't have it, nobody can. Germany actually applauds this move and approves of what they have done because they see Austria as being sort of like this peacekeeping force, ironically. Serbia is very angry and just boils with rage at Austria. They view Austria as being their oppressor, their long-time oppressor, and now the obstacle in the way of getting what they want, which is a port at sea. Russia is also angry at this. Russia supports Pan-Slavism. Okay, Pan-Slavism, which would have been one of your IDs, is basically the idea that all Slavic states need to come together and form one large independent Slavic state. That's what Russia supports. That's what Serbia supports. They figure this way Slavic states cannot be picked on anymore. So the fact that Austria intervened and made this happen is just seen as one more crime that Austria has committed against the Balkan people. Everybody was so angry. There was so much resentment and hard feelings, and everything in the Balkans still seemed to be so crazy that one European official was noted as saying, peace remains at the mercy of an accident, meaning like it would just take one little switch, one little trip up, and a war would break out right here in the Balkans. That's why it was called the powder keg of Europe. In fact, Bismarck himself in 1888, 2 years before being fired by the Kaiser of Germany, even was once quoted as saying this: "One day, the great European war will come out of some damned foolish thing in the Balkans." So, guys, there you have it. In 1914, the year after the Second Balkan War, the Austrian Archduke will be assassinated in Bosnia by a Serbian, and within 1 month, the entire world will be at war. Even the United States, Canada, Australia, and Japan will get drawn into this war. Millions and millions of people will die, and new technology will be invented and created during this time that will change warfare forever. So with that, guys, I will leave you with this final map of what the Balkans look like now in 1913. Here's your timeline that kind of shows you the breakdown of the last 25, 30 years of the 19th century going into the 20th century. And I'll see you guys back here when we get into how this actually ends up playing out with an assassination.
I want to say something first.
Okay, Evan wants to say something first.
Bismarck, that dude,